it's sounds like everything's working out for you guys. And as we welcome everybody here, we welcome everybody in the Zoom platform, and I believe we're connecting live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We're gonna be starting here in a few minutes. Give everybody a couple minutes to settle in, and check out what we're all about. Uh, but how's the weather out there, Amanda, other than a couple of weeks ago?
Yes, the weather is actually beautiful right now. It's a little cold, not very cold, but it's chilly in the mornings. But by the afternoon, it's warm. It's perfect weather. So we're this blue skies,
Awesome.
really nice. Yes, yes. It-
Yeah, no,
this
that's
time of year,
great.
it's so
Because
pretty here. The leaves, we have all the leaves changing colors for autumn. It's beautiful.
oh, that's amazing. I love that weather.
Yeah.
I love when to see fall be fall.
Yes, we have a definite fall.
But yes, welcome everybody. I see more people joining us. Welcome. Um, yeah, if you're following us on Facebook, let us know where you're following us from. YouTube, LinkedIn, let us know. Here in the chats as well. You can submit that. But I think we're ready to roll. Are you ready,
I'm ready.
Amanda?
Yes, thank you.
Ready. Let's do this. Um, Good morning, everybody. This is Vicente here with Latino Tax Pro, and today we have our good friend Amanda. Those of you that have been to the fest, you may know who she is. She's also one of our speakers. She's really amazing, does a great job. That's why we always have her come back. And in addition to that, she works with our preferred partners as far as software goes with Drake Software. But I'm not gonna steal all your thunder, Amanda. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, or for the people that still don't know yet, and why should they even come to see you at the fest?
Oh, yes. Well, Vince, thank you so much for that nice introduction. I really value the partnership that we have with Latino Tax Pro, and the Fest is one of my favorite events of the year. It's everyone is so happy, and they're all there for the same reasons to learn and to grow their business, and it's really a great event. So I really enjoy that, and I appreciate you guys having me. For those that I've never met before, I'm Amanda Watson, and I work with Drake Software, and I've been at Drake Software seems like a really long time, over 20 years. I
Mhm.
think this coming up tax season will be 22 tax seasons because I think that's how we measure our life these days in tax seasons. It's a definite new unit of measurement. So I am so excited to work at Drake, and I get to meet so many great people who are building their businesses, and it's really an honor to be here with you today, Vince, and your audience.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. We enjoy having you there.
Yeah.
And looking forward to many more opportunities to keep working together. And I know today you have some great information for us. We're going to be covering excuse me about that. Best practices for remote tax prepare or tax prep.
Mhm.
And can you tell us a little bit more of what you're going to be covering today? A quick
Yes, yeah,
overview.
of course. Today we're going to talk about remote tax prep. And it's one of those things that has changed a lot, especially since 2020 and the pandemic. We see more and more people working remotely, and that includes tax professionals. Of course, they want the convenience of working remotely, and but there's a lot of things that we need to think about as professionals and who work with taxpayers and the IRS when we are going to work remotely. So we're going to think about some of the things that we should consider working remotely, whether you are preparing tax returns remotely or maybe you're just working from home outside your office a little bit. So we're going to talk about some fun things and some important things that we should know.
Awesome. Thank you for that quick overview, Amanda.
Yes.
And I know you have a presentation for us. So as you're
Yes.
putting that up,
Sure.
welcome everybody again. So if you have any questions for Amanda as she goes through her presentation, if you're following us here on the Zoom platform, use the Q&A box so we can keep track of the questions and answer them. We'll try to answer them as best as possible and as quickly as possible. And if you're following us on any of the social media platforms, also you can submit your questions in there, and I will read them out to Amanda. So without further ado, Amanda, I give you the space.
Thank you so much, Vince, and thank you for having me here today. Just like we said, I'm going to discuss some of the best practices for remote tax prep, and we're going to talk about some really important things to consider. And again, as we were coming out of the pandemic several years ago, we saw a change in the way that people work and the way that a lot of businesses and employ their workforce. And we saw a lot of contactless service during that time. But it quickly became something that was routine in our industry, and many professionals adopted those practices. And I think it will continue to evolve as we head into the future. We'll see more advances in technology and security that'll help us work remotely, perhaps more of more often. Maybe you prefer to work in person, but there's still really important things we consider. And we're at that time of year when we are thinking about next tax season. So this is a really great time of year to really take stock of your practices and how you implement and your different security standards, your policies, and more importantly, how you work with taxpayers. So we've moved way past the pandemic at this point. I think we're all very happy to say that. But I anticipate that things are never going to be quite the same as they were before 2020. And we have become accustomed to working remotely and working virtually. And I think a lot of that is here to stay. So, and as we head into tax season, I would expect there to be challenges. Just like there is with every tax season. It seems like every tax season has its unique set of challenges. And, no matter what it is, I know that tax professionals are resilient and you're hard workers. And it's us here at Drake Software, we're here to partner with our customers to help you along the way and help you move towards success. So, as today, one of the things we're really going to focus on is security, and it's more important than ever. There are a lot of bad actors out there, and there's new opportunities for malicious activity, especially when we think about remote tax prep, working virtually, and it is really important to be aware of threats that may exist. And there has been a target on tax professionals by bad actors and criminals for a while, but since the pandemic, I think that target has gotten even bigger. So with that, let's think about some things. What some considerations we should think about when we're working with clients remotely, and that could be whether you are seeing your clients remotely and you're never actually face to face with those customers or taxpayers, or whether you have a hybrid method. Maybe some folks come in the office, some do not, or maybe all of your clients come in the office, but you do meet with them virtually from time to time, deliver documents virtually, and maybe you work from home. So these are things that we should think about when we're thinking about working remotely in any capacity. We want to think about how we meet with clients, and we're going to talk about some options there. We want to think about how we can securely prepare tax returns, and then often involves your tax software and other tools that you may be using as part of the services that you're providing your taxpayers. And one really important thing that we think about or need to think about is how are we going to exchange information with our clients and how exchange documents, because that's really important. And I've seen some professionals overlook the importance of thinking about security when exchanging documents. So we're gonna kind of bucket our conversation into these three categories. But the first thing I really want to talk about today is when working remotely, of course, we have to consider security. And the one thing that we should start with is, what does the law say that we as tax professionals need to do? And I'm going to point you to the Federal Trade Commission, or the FTC. The FTC has a set of rules called the Safeguard Rules. And it states, this is a law, it says protecting taxpayer data is the law, of course. And under the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, the safeguard rules says that tax professionals must adhere to a certain set of standards and items to make sure they're protecting taxpayer data. And if you haven't had the opportunity as a tax professional to review these safeguard rules, I highly recommend that you do that. You can just go to the FTC website, you can Google FTC safeguard rules, and there will be a set of rules and standards. That's a really good place to start. Reading through those is really important, and this is a great time of year to do that as we're coming up on tax season. But one of the things that is outlined in the safeguard rules is that you must have a written information security plan. And we in the industry call that a WISP. And over the last couple of years, you've probably heard a lot about the WISP. A couple of years ago, the IRS released a publication to help professionals write a WISP, and that is Publication 5708. And it's really an outline or a skeleton, if you will, about writing that plan. And I'm not going to really focus on this presentation on how to write that plan, but it's really important that you have one. And in your WISP or your written information security plan, it's really important to outline all the ways that you're going to work remotely and all the ways that you're going to have any type of contactless tax prep or virtual or remote contact with your taxpayers. So don't overlook this portion when working with, or that subject when working with customers remotely. And of course, this Graham-Leach-Bliley Act and the safeguard rules is going to have measures that help keep taxpayer information secure. And the IRS has released a publication. It's publication 4557.
Amanda, I think we lost your
Oh no.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, I was just talking about the publication 4557, and this is an IRS publication that's going to help you comply with the safeguard rules. The IRS kind of summarized it for tax professionals. And this publication is all about safeguarding taxpayer data. And it's really, the IRS wrote this publication as a guide for your business. So again, I highly encourage you to take a look at this publication and download that, print it out, whatever works best for you, and review that ahead of tax season. And the publication 4557 is going to walk you through in really easy to understand language about things like setting up your security software, passwords, what to do if you have a breach, how to comply with the safeguard rules, of course. So that is another important publication. So out of the two things on this slide, I recommend just reading through the safeguard rules so that you're familiar with them, because it is the law that you follow those. And again, reference IRS publication 4557. That's really going to give you a common language way to understand your requirements. So that's what I wanted to start with, is like, know the rules that you need to protect yourself, to be compliant with the law. So again, I really recommend that. So let's talk about the three buckets of things that we talked about, or the three categories. The first one was, we talked about meeting with clients. If you're meeting with clients remotely, that may be over the phone, or it could be using video conferencing. We see video conferencing is a lot today. As a matter of fact, in the capacity of my role at Drake Software, I have almost all of my meetings over video conference. So I am in a lot of video conferencing. So if you're going to video conference your clients, it's a great idea. That includes platforms such as Zoom, Microsoft Teams, GoToWebinar or even FaceTime, those type of things, you want to think about a few things if you're using those type of tools to meet or talk to your customers. Um, the CISA, or CISA, which is the Cyber Infrastructure Department under the Department of Homeland Security. I have it's CISA.gov. They have a great guide for securing your video conferencing tools, and you can just Google this. I would put a link here, but you wouldn't be able to click it on the slide. But it's really easy to find, and it's this documentation. I just have a snapshot of this document. CISA has released this guide for securing video conferencing. It has practical tips like be careful of your surroundings. Like you may not want to have your meeting with your taxpayer in a coffee shop where everyone can hear. You may want to make sure you have earbuds in or headphones on. You want to make sure to connect securely. Access control. When you are working with a customer over video conferencing, can they control the video? Are they going to be able to share? Are you going to allow file sharing during your video conference? That's something you want to think about. You may want to restrict the type of files that someone can send you over a video conference. For example, you don't want anybody to send you an executable file. And there's some great tips in this guide for screen sharing. If you're sharing your screen with a taxpayer, you want to be hyper vigilant not to share other taxpayers' information. So something you may not want to do is like open up your tax software and then open their return. If you have your software oriented where you can see other taxpayers' names, that is something you don't want to do. So in something where you're sharing maybe a tax return, it may be good to download a PDF of that tax return so you're not in and out of your tax software where you could see other taxpayers' name, or make sure you have your tax software set up where you have hidden any of that private information. I know in Drake we have some security or privacy settings in case someone is looking at your screen. You want to think about recording. Are you going to allow someone else to record in your video conferencing? Are you going to record it? Those are things you need to think about. If you do record it, where is the video stored? For example, Zoom. Zoom is one that I use often. And when you have a Zoom meeting, you can have it automatically record your meeting. Now, if you're looking at social security numbers and other types of PII, you may want to have a second thought about, should I be recording this? And you definitely probably do not want to have your video stored in the cloud, because if you have the recording stored in the cloud, you are then subject that information to that cloud server. You probably don't have a lot of information about that. So it is something to think about, and this document really outlines it for video conferencing. And one tip in here that I found really practical was make sure whatever tool you're using that you're always getting the latest updates. So I think that's pretty standard with any software. Getting those updates is really important. So, and you may just be talking on the phone with your taxpayers, and that works too. But there are some things to think about. And at first, I really didn't think anything about having a video conference or a Zoom meeting. But as professionals in our industry, we have to be very careful to protect our taxpayers, the tax system, and our businesses, and while we're conducting our business. So if you are meeting with clients, you're probably figuring out, how am I going to work virtually more than just talking to your clients? How are you going to prepare their tax return remotely? And some of you may not, may go into an office setting, or maybe your office is always from home and you're not connecting to your software through the web or any kind of remote services, but sometimes you may be. And even if you are working in a brick and mortar office, you may go home at night and want to work on a return or work on it over the weekend at home. So there's a couple of options that we have when we think about working virtually, especially if you're talking about a desktop program. If you have a web-based product, Some of these considerations you may not need to make. For example, if you're launching your software in a web browser, a lot of these security measures are already built in. But if you are working in a desktop program, whether it's your tax software or your bookkeeping software, or any software that has taxpayer data, we want to be sure that you use the right solutions to access that information remotely. And a couple of ways to do that is by using a VPN, which is a virtual private network, or considering a hosted solution. So let's talk a little bit about what a VPN is. A VPN is an encrypted connection through the internet, I guess I should say. It's over the internet from a device to a network. And this encrypted connection helps ensure that sensitive data is safely transmitted. And it's going to prevent unauthorized people from eavesdropping on the traffic that allows you to work securely, of course. If you don't use a VPN, you could be subject or at risk to remote takeover by cyber thieves, and in some cases, criminals getting access to an entire tax professional's entire office network simply by accessing an employee's remote internet. So when you think about how do I set up a VPN, the IRS recommends that you should seek a cybersecurity expert. And you may know someone in your area that can help you get that set up. And of course, the IRS, the Department of Homeland Security, CISA, they all recommend VPNs. And one thing I'd like to note is remote access desktop or remote access service is not the same as a VPN. When I say things like remote access service, I'm talking about things like Splashtop, TeamViewer, LogMeIn. These do not have the security built in that a VPN does. So be sure and do your homework to make sure that you've protected your taxpayers and your business. So think about that. Another way to work remotely if you're using a desktop product is by hosting your desktop application in the cloud. That means that you can work securely remotely from really anywhere. You can access your product anywhere you are. There's going to be all of your IT work is going to be in the cloud. And you'll notice that at the top of my slide here, I have RightWorks. RightWorks is the hosted solution that Drake Software has partnered with to host all of your Drake applications in the cloud. And hosting applications in the cloud will definitely give you more flexibility with your program and will help you make sure that you're secure. And you're going to have some other advantages like connected collaboration, automatic backups. You can work on various operating systems like a Mac, an OS operating system, or a Microsoft or a PC operating system. So it's going to give you a little bit more flexibility. And it's also going to give you that security there as well. So if you're going to work remotely, thinking about cloud hosting, especially if you have remote workers, because I know that's a common occurrence now, is you may have an office, but you may have tax preparers who are working remotely. It's really important that they're either using a web-based program, having cloud hosting, or using a VPN. Other ways of connecting to a network may not be as secure. So be sure and do your homework on that one. So the next thing I really want to talk about today is how you exchange documents with your taxpayer. And this one is huge because not only does this mean you sending documents to your taxpayers, but it also is talking about how taxpayers are sending you documents. And one common way that we exchange information over the internet is through email. And email is something that we use often in business. And you probably use email a lot in your business. I know I use email a lot at work. Email is a great way to communicate. However, you may not know this, that 91% of cyber attacks start with an email. Which generally is in the form of phishing. I'm sure you guys have heard tons of stuff about phishing in the last few years. But One thing about keeping email secure is you need to take special care of your email password. Your email password must be secure. Um, Password security is important for any application, but even more so when you're thinking about email. Your email password is almost the keys to the kingdom, if you will. For example, if you forget your password at your bank website or at Amazon or any website, and you click the forgot password link, many times they're going to send you an email where you can reset your password or access the application through a link in the email. So if someone has access to your email, it's really easy for them to potentially change your email password and change the password for many other applications. So and I expect most of you use email in the course of business. Be sure and protect that password. One thing I really want to drive home today is email is not a secure way to transmit PII or taxpayer data. Email is not considered secure for sending tax returns, tax return data, source documents, um, and for many reasons. One of the reasons that it isn't secure is when you send an email, for example, between you and your recipient, there may be numerous servers that email goes through. Servers you may not even be aware of. And that means that data goes through networks, servers before the message actually arrives at the recipient. And you don't know who has access to them. The privacy of emails cannot be assured. Additionally, if you have things in your email, that email may be sitting on a device, whether it's your computer, your laptop, your phone, your iPad. If anyone gains access to any one of those devices that has your email sitting there, then that is just as good as seeing all of that access to all of those emails. So again, the privacy cannot be assured. And there is the thing that I'm sure we've all done before is like emailing the wrong thing to the wrong person. That is terrible. So that is another way email can kind of get you. A couple years ago, I heard someone say a quote that said about emailing PII and emailing tax documents. They said it's really easy. It's easy to do. Let's send this, but it's really hard to pay for. When something goes awry, you will wish that you wouldn't have done that. So there are always there are other options, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But one more tip about email security: always use multi-factor authentication on your email. And of course, there are some other tips that I could throw in, like you shouldn't commingle your business and personal email, but nevertheless, use MFA on both of those. If you are exchanging taxpayer documents with your clients via email, I recommend that you reconsider that and stop, really. So, for example, if a taxpayer emails you a W-2, which you really can't control what they send you initially, you should delete the email. Don't open it. Delete it from your deleted items, and then contact your taxpayer. Help them find a secure way to exchange documents. And we recommend a Drake portals, of course, but you would definitely need a secure file exchange portal. And I mentioned phishing, and I have just a little bit of information here. Phishing is can get you in trouble with email. So when we talk about a portal, Drake Portals is what is integrated with Drake software, and it is secure. It is a secure way to file exchange files securely. If you're using another software provider, or I would recommend using some type of portal. Do not use email. It's really putting your business at jeopardy, putting your taxpayer data at jeopardy. You need to have a secure portal where you can exchange files securely. The beauty about Drake Portals is that it's integrated with Drake Tax, our document manager, so it's really easy to send and receive files from the portal. You can put a link on your website, and it integrates and it brands with your website so customers can upload documentation there. It's a great solution to exchange documents with taxpayers. It's really convenient. And of course, You in Drake portals, you can also facilitate e-signatures, that's remote digital signatures. You can send payments or collect payments, I should say, collect payments for tax prep through the portals. And one really nice thing is that you can use the portals to back up your data, your local data. So, for example, if you're using Drake software, you can back up all of your software data to the portal, and then you know that it's secure. When you're thinking about using a secure file exchange portal, whether it's if it's not Drake portals, you want to think about one that's built for tax professionals for sure, because there are some rules about where you can store taxpayer data. For example, Regulation 7216 states that you cannot store taxpayer data outside the United States without taxpayer consent, of course. And so if you're using some type of portal that has a server that's not in the US, that would technically require that you give the taxpayers permission to store their data there. So you want to make sure whatever you're using is US based, which of course Drake Portals is, and that you're compliant with 7216. I'm not going to go much into 7216 today, but I do want you to know that it does have criminal consequences, so we should take that one very seriously. So Drake Portals is what we'd recommend if you're a Drake user. And another way that you're going to protect information online and in any application that you use is by using multi-factor authentication. And I mentioned this when we were talking about email earlier. You want to use multi-factor authentication on any application that you use to prepare returns or have any kind of PII or taxpayer data. Sometimes you'll hear this called MFA, two-factor, 2FA. Those are all the same thing. It just means you have multiple verification factors to gain access to the application. You probably already use this on your tax software. Hopefully you do. And you probably use it on many personal applications, like your bank, your email, Amazon, all those things. I turn on multi-factor authentication every opportunity that I have just to keep everything secure. And you especially want to do that when you're thinking about your business. So when I say there are multiple verification factors that are required to gain access, these verification factors are in basically three categories. The first category is knowledge. These are things you know. Then we have possession. These are things that you have in your possession. And of course, inherence. These are things that you are. Let's look at some examples of a knowledge factor. That is a password. You know your password. Biographical information. What is your mother's maiden name? Security questions. What is the name of your favorite football team? Those are things that you know, and that is just one of many potential factors. Another factor is possession. These are things that you have in your possession, and these are often tokens or devices. And I know that sometimes we have tokens like on USB devices. I use my phone here for multi-factor authentication for many of my applications. I have applications and different tokens on my phone that are in my possession. And then inherence factors, things like fingerprints, retina scan, facial recognition. Again, use facial recognition on my phone to unlock it often. So multi-factor, it means that you're going to have more than one factor. It doesn't mean two knowledge. It doesn't mean two possession. It should be two, at least more than one of these different factors. And Drake Tax, of course, we're going to use the knowledge factor, which is a password, and the possession factor, which is a token or an application on a phone or a device. So that's how we would implement multi-factor authentication in Drake Tax. Now, with Drake Tax specifically, and with any type of multi-factor authentication, you're going to have authenticator apps. And I've listed some common ones on the screen, but this is not an all-inclusive list by any means. You may use Google Authenticator, Authy, Microsoft Authenticator, LastPass, or Duo. I use several of these plus others. One that I really like is Authy, the second one listed here. And the reason I like it is because it syncs across devices. So it syncs to my cell phone and it also syncs to my iPad. So I don't have to have that one specific device there if I need it. Also, well, maybe I shouldn't tell you. I was going to say my husband and I can share authentication. Like I can log into all his accounts because I can sync our Authy account between the two of us. Don't tell him. Just kidding. All right, so authentication apps are probably something that you're familiar with. Now, this is the really point I want to drive home about multi-factor authentication. The FTC, going back to the safeguard rules that we talked about, multi-factor authentication is required by law for tax professionals. And of course, this is part of protecting the taxpayer information. Taxpayer data is the law. The law requires that you use MFA on any application where it's offered, and that includes your tax software. You're required by law to use multi-factor authentication on your tax software. So if your software allows you to opt out, you probably shouldn't be. And Drake Tax, for example, does allow you to opt out. It is on by default. And the reason that we allow you to opt out is because there is an exception. And the exception would be if you're a qualified individual, and that is someone who's identified in your WISP, has approved in writing the use of another equivalent form of secure access controls. What that would be, I don't know. So I'm just going to assume most people are required to use MFA. And if you're not, you would definitely know because you would have some other way for securing access in a written documentation. And it would be part of your written information security plan. So I really want to bring this home. Multi-factor authentication is required by law. So you should be using it on your tax software for sure. You should be using it on your portals. Anything that you're using with taxpayer data or PII, know that it is required. And this, again, you can go back to those safeguard rules and see the, specific language about the requirements for that. So this is really important. And multi-factor authentication is not just required when you're working remotely or virtually. It's required whether you're in a brick and mortar office setting or any type of thing. It's always required no matter what capacity that you're going to work in. So you need to make sure to do that. So multi-factor authentication is pretty easy to set up in most cases. Sometimes you'll see it where they send a text message or other types of factors instead of an app. But there are, of course, various ways to do that. But just make sure that you're doing that today. I do have some really good resources here for you because I mentioned a lot. And here are a few of the IRS publications that may be helpful. First is publication 1345, and this is if you're an ERO and if you're a tax return preparer, most people are an ERO or work with an ERO to e-file those returns. And publication 1345 has some good guidance about all of your requirements for e-filing and working remotely and for security. It has some information in there about the signatures that you collect for e-file on your 8879 and when it's okay to get a wet signature, a digital signature, or a remote digital signature. So it's a good opportunity to do some reading. I already mentioned publication 4557, and that's, again, it's going to just be safeguarding taxpayer data. Has a lot of good information, and the IRS definitely keeps that up to date. The publication 5293 is the Data Security Resource Guide for tax professionals. One publication that I did not list on this slide is publication 5708, and that is just how to create that WISP or Written Information Security Plan. It's just a guide of how to do that, and it was put together with the Security Summit and the IRS to take those requirements of the safeguard rules and give you at least a starting point on how to do that. And then there's some NIST NIST 7621, the Small Business Information Security, the fundamentals. And so those are some good resources. I also mentioned resources today from CISA. And CISA is, again, the Cyber Security and Infrastructure Security Agency. That's a mouthful. But that they are under the Department of Homeland Security, and I found a lot of great guidance there, especially when we're talking about the video conferencing. They also have some great resources for using a VPN. So you just want to make sure that first and foremost that you're educated on what you need to do when working remotely and that you have the right tools in place in order to work securely. So if we think about all the things that we talked about today, I think educating yourself is right at the top of the list. Make sure that you're familiar with the safeguard rules, because you are legally bound to those rules as a tax return preparer. And you want to make sure that you have a secure way to exchange documents with your taxpayer. Do not do not send tax return data via email. It just isn't secure, and it could have some terrible consequences for you and your taxpayer. And we want to make sure that you're using the multi-factor authentication. And there's some other things to think about that I'm not necessarily going to dive into today. But if you are working remotely or are working from home, there's things that you want to think about, like your antivirus protection, your firewalls, whether it's a software firewall or a hardware firewall. It's really important to configure those, make sure they're enabled. You want to make sure to back up your data so that you have a backup somewhere. Um, if you're working from home, or you want to make sure to remove unnecessary devices and services from your computer. It's probably better to have a computer dedicated for your business at home and not use one that maybe your kids are playing video games on or downloading things on, just to make sure you have that separation from your business and the taxpayer data, and these other devices that are used for something else. So that is definitely a recommendation there. And you think about your Wi-Fi signal, things like that. So I think that really brings us to the end of my webinar here today, Vince. I don't see any questions in Zoom today. Did you have any questions, Vince?
No, well, I do, but uh,
Okay.
yeah, no questions. It was no to not seeing questions yet. So
Okay.
at this moment, we would welcome everybody to ask any questions that you may have for Amanda. Security
Uh-huh.
is a big important portion of doing remote work.
Yeah.
I shared the link you were talking about earlier,
Perfect. Thank
Amanda.
you.
So I shared it both on social media platforms and here
Great.
in Zoom. As we wait for this, oh, we do have a Q&A. Is it necessary to have two separate internet connections when working from home?
Yeah, that's a great question. Should you have two separate internet connections? And I think that it's not a bad idea. Is it necessary? It may depend. Some things to think about when you're thinking about your internet access at home is that you want to make sure, if you're using your home Wi-Fi, you want to make sure that, again, you have the firewalls and enabled, and you want to make sure you have a secure password on your home Wi-Fi, because you don't want people who aren't around getting on that, because you don't want the traffic on your network that you don't expect. You don't want to change the password on your router, because sometimes they'll have like a default password that's like admin or password. So change the name of your network, perhaps, because sometimes that it's called an SSID. It's the default kind of name, identifies the manufacturer. And if a bad person knows, I was going to say bad guys, but not all of them are guys. If a bad guy knows that what device you have, it's easier for them to hack in. But like us, Vince, I live out in a really rural area, so I don't really have people like outside my
Mhm.
house trying to connect to it. So those are things you just want to think about. If you're in a city where people are walking by your apartment, you may want to be more aware of that, not have your signal propagating outside your home. So it may depend on the activity on your network. It's not a bad idea to have a separate one, but it can depend. Yeah. I've even talked to some
Yeah,
people
that was
who
a great
turn.
question.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Do we have
Hmm?
another question?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say,
No, no, we don't.
oh, okay.
I was just gonna say, yeah, that was a good question.
Yeah, it was good. And I've even had some security experts recommend to turn off your internet when you're not using it. And that probably was a lot of work, but it could help protect people from getting on your internet. Um,
Yeah, you save electricity, I guess. Uh, since it's not running 20,
yeah,
which is the standard, right? Everybody kind of leaves it on. I
yeah,
know we do at my house. So,
yeah, we do too. We
um,
don't turn it off.
yeah, I don't think I ever thought about turning it off, but,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean that's what it's coming down to at this point.
Mhm.
Especially getting your security system up and running,
Yep.
making sure you deal with, I know like Best Buy, for example, has the Geek Squad,
Uh-huh.
and from what I noticed, not all of them are geeks, so that's pretty cool. No, I'm just kidding. But they do have a great service, and they can definitely help out. Or if you know of
Uh-huh.
a company, you can also check out our Latino Tax Fest page
Oh,
marketplace,
yeah.
and check out the security section, and we have a couple companies in there that can help you out. I know you mentioned the WISP,
Yep.
and I'm pretty sure people are a little fed up with it, like WISP this and WISP that.
Yes.
We're always WISPing.
I
So,
know. I
so
know.
now
You're right
it's
about the
it's
WISP. A lot of people have heard a lot about
yeah.
it. I still hear people every day like, I don't know what to do. Do I have to do this?
Hmm.
So I still think there's people who may need to take a second look at that.
Yeah, especially because this kind of brings me to my next point. I
Mhm.
just renewed my pizza, and I don't know if you renewed it yet.
Yes.
Oh yeah, awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah, I got that email as soon as I saw it. Boom, I'm in.
Yeah.
And then I renewed it, and there's that one question, the security question. And if you
Yep.
say yes, and for whatever reason, you're one of the lucky few that gets picked from that raffle, and you
Yeah.
don't have it, that's so there's some repercussions on that, right, Amanda? Or
Yeah, yeah, you're right. A couple years ago it said, "Do you have a plan in place?" But they've kind of
hmm
changed that now. Like they've listed all of these resources, and you have
hmm
to agree that you understand them. So yeah, it's really important. If you have a PTIN, it's just stuff you have to know. So I think that's a great
yeah,
point, Vince. Yeah, I saw it
yeah,
too.
yeah,
I took a
yeah.
screenshot so I could show other people. So you're right
I
about that.
know. Yeah, I took a screenshot only because we had some internal questions, and I'm like, well, I'm about to renew mine, so I took it. But as you can tell, this is not my normal setting. I'm actually in Phoenix right now,
Oh yeah.
attending a show, which I should be downstairs, but I made sure
Oh,
that I had enough time over here.
thank you, Vince.
So don't worry, I got somebody helping me out and taking care of my table.
Good.
Hopefully they don't take all my pens.
Oh, that's
Anyways,
always a
so
problem.
I know everybody
Always,
loves those pens because they tend to be the highlight of the show. They have a
right?
highlighter. But
Yeah,
yeah, so anyways, there's a lot of people that think that, oh, hey, the Wisp, I already have it, but they don't do anything with it.
right.
And is that worse to just have it not used, and not put it in place, or to not have it?
I think it's you definitely want to have it, but like to have it and not be meaningful, and it doesn't have to be complex. It can be really
Mm-hmm.
it can be really short as long as it addresses your business. And I think that that's the one thing that the IRS drives home is like you don't have to have some really complicated document as long as you have documentation about what your practice does and what you're going to do if something goes sideways. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's the key there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't see any more questions, but definitely reach out. This is recorded, so anybody that wants to rewatch it, you can watch it either on our Facebook page, Latino Tax Pro,
Mhm.
or our YouTube page, Latino Tax Pro. I would encourage you to subscribe and because we're gonna be doing a few more series of webinars here with the Drake team. Man, we may see Amanda again, or we may not, but for sure we'll see her at Tax Fest June
Yes.
16th through the 19th. Or if you're a Drake user, this is my time. I like going to these user conferences. So if not, you can get to see her at one of these events, or if you're planning to switch softwares. I don't know. Do you have a message for our viewers, Amanda?
Yeah, if you're not a Drake user, you can go to our website at drakesoftware.com and you can definitely get more information. You can sign up for a free trial of Drake. And if you want to just talk to someone, you can give us a call at 800-890-9500 and we have somebody that can answer all your questions. And if you are a Drake customer, you probably know how to get in touch with us. We're so happy to have you here.
Yeah, definitely. And if you haven't been out to one of the Drake user conferences, those are really great. They give you insights on how to use the
Yes.
software, navigate it, make it easier. Of course, repetition and practice is always the best.
Yep.
But I think you guys do an amazing job with those events. Looking forward to it. I know they've started, right? Have you guys started already?
Our first one is
Or they're gonna start
in Dallas, yeah, Dallas
next week, right?
next
All
week,
right.
yeah, in Dallas, and we're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
have some speakers from the IRS there. John Sapp is gonna be there, and you're gonna be there too,
Oh,
Viv.
nice.
So, of course,
Yeah,
everybody should
Latino Tax
come.
Pro is going to be present. Yeah, and I myself will be there with another colleague. We definitely enjoy being out there. Um, I myself am looking forward to it. I just in general I like Texas, but when it comes
Yeah,
with partners like you guys, I enjoy it. So definitely looking forward to it. Thank you everybody for joining us today.
thank you.
Any last words as we come to a closing, Amanda?
Well, Vince, I just want to say again, thank you so much for having me today. I love working with the Latino tax professional group. You guys are always so nice, and you have just the greatest people. And I'm just really thankful to be here today. So thanks for having me.
Definitely. It's always a pleasure having you with us, Amanda, and sharing screen, at times sharing the venue. But definitely looking forward to seeing you next week and the rest of the Drake team, John as well, Laura. So all the team members, looking forward to it. And thank you everybody for tuning in today. I know we didn't really acknowledge it, but tax season ended a couple weeks ago, October 15th, and now we're looping right back around to getting started for the new tax season. So looking forward to that. And if you're looking for solutions, definitely you can, like I said, you can reach our Latino Tax Fest marketplace page and find softwares. You can find Drake software in there as well. Request a demo. It's always great. Doesn't hurt to just check it out. But thank you, Amanda. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. And we will see you in the next Facebook Live. Have a good one, everybody. Thank you, Amanda. Bye bye.